Hello, hello, my beautiful working class people. Coming to you today with a video about how the working class can exert its power, what kind of power we have, and basically what is our role in this system, these systems that we are living with, be it capitalism and our representative democracy or republic, however you want to look at it. There are certain things that citizens need to do and should do to make those systems operate correctly. And if we don't do those things, then you see systems kind of operate maybe how you're seeing right now. So we need to look at ways in how we can change our behavior to change the way the system is behaving. It's a big theme. We are the solution. We, the people, are the solution, which means our behaviors are the solution. We need to change our behaviors to change the way the system operates. We cannot continue to look to mostly rich, but a few working class people getting into positions of power and state or local or federal government, and then expecting them to save us. I think we have 250 years of history to kind of prove to us that is never going to happen, and it's about time we get our head out of our asses and start doing things in a way that benefits us, the working class, because if we do not, I think you are starting to see what's going on in the country and what's going on in the world. If you pay any attention, you're starting to see some crazy shit going on that should alarm you a little bit and should be making you think, whoa, we need to change some things. And how do we do that? And that's where I come in. I'm going to talk about how we can change some of those things, and it's a lot easier than you think, honestly. But before I get into that, I kind of want to get into something real quick about what I'm trying to do, which I need your help with. Trying to start something from nothing in a way that's not going to involve me bombarding you with ads or things like that. Ultimately, in a dream world, people find these videos not entertaining. I may be entertaining, I don't know, but hopefully informative and helpful, and share them, like them, and also subscribe to the channel, which you can all do below. And eventually, if we get up to enough people that have subscribed and are actually paying attention and care about these things, then I can do this crazy radical thing of just asking people to give me $1 for the entire year. And you have like 60, 70,000 people give you $1. Guess what? You have $60,000, $70,000, which means then I can do this full time instead of having to try and figure out how to do this in between work and trying to do things in my life to keep my sanity and things like that. So probably a ways away from that, but in a dream world, hopefully that's where things will head. So help me out by like, subscribe, and sharing anything that you feel might be relevant to people you know, which should be a lot of people, because if you're seeing this, you're most likely a working class person who knows a lot of working class people who could use this information. Now let's get into it. So we have a republic, or a representative democracy, and our economic system is capitalism. Those systems have rules that were kind of envisioned by the people that created them. In terms of capitalism, it's been around for about 300 years. So the people that kind of came up with that system had some ideas for how workers would behave. They predicted very well how the rich and how business owners and property owners would behave, because that's not a new thing. I mean, they've had business owners and property owners pretty much doing the same shit they do now for as long as we have written record, which goes back 6,000 years at least. You can go to any civilization, any country, any race of people. Business owners do what business owners do, and that's try to fuck over their employees, obtain wealth, then try to take over the government, then try to take over the country, then try to take over other countries. Pretty documented throughout history. I mean, it's not nothing new. The people that created capitalism, which Adam Smith is the guy who gets credited with creating capitalism. He's was he English or Scottish? I can't remember. English or Scottish guy back in the 1700s. He predicted very, very accurately what rich people would do, but because he knew what rich people would do, he created a system that he thought would give workers and ordinary people the ability to check the power of the rich and business owners and prevent them from doing the shady things that they do to us. Unfortunately, our education system has decided not to teach people about these things, and so nobody really knows about it. If you think about it, it's kind of common sense once I tell you about it, but once I kind of studied it and learned about it, I was like, holy shit, that makes perfect sense. Like, yeah, workers should be doing these things. So some of the things that, in a capitalist system that workers need to be thinking about is every decision you make when you purchase something, you need to be thinking about where's my money going? The person who's getting my money, what are they doing with it? And does what they're doing with my money support or oppose, my best interest as a working class person? And if the people you're giving your money to, Walmart, Amazon, if you're giving these people your money and then they're taking that money and bribing politicians to fuck you, then you a dumbass for continuing to shop at those places. I'm sorry, but you can't continue to blame. That's one of the things that annoys the shit out of me about the left in general, is they blame these rich people for doing what rich people are going to do, but they never actually criticize working class people for doing something stupid like giving people like Jeff Bezos all your money or the Walton family all your money. Those people didn't get rich by like robbing you. I mean, they screw over their workers. I'm not going to even pretend they don't. They screw over their workers, and they screw over consumers too. They could be selling these products much cheaper and still making a shit ton of money. They don't do it because we're too stupid to force them to do it. And the way we force them to do it is by not shopping there. I haven't shopped at Walmart in probably 10 years. I've never shopped at Amazon. Just recently got my girlfriend to cancel her Amazon subscription. But, these are the kind of things like we have to start doing as a working class. Now, coming from a small town in the Midwest, I also understand that things have gotten to the point where in some cities, Walmart is your only option. So if you're in that situation, I feel you. We got to start thinking of ways to, start boycotting Walmart, though. Like, only get from Walmart what you absolutely have to and start shopping other places for those needs, which means, yeah, we're going to have to sacrifice a little bit. There's going to be some things we might have to go without. But, we can't give these companies that are outsourcing jobs or exploiting workers or making insane amounts of money to where they're just bribing state, local, and federal governments to screw us. We can't keep giving them our money and then crying like little babies because they're screwing us. We have to change our behavior, and that behavior change starts with boycotting these companies as much as possible. In some instances it's not possible, but in most instances, especially if you live in a bigger, like a more urban area, a city of 60, 70, 80,000 or whatever or higher, you got options. If you live in a small rural town with maybe 5,000 to 6,000 people, Walmart might be the only option. But where I live, I have probably 5 or 6 grocery stores within a mile radius of me. I have multiple stores that I don't even know where the closest Walmart is, but I have multiple stores like a Walmart where I can go get stuff. I have multiple hardware stores. These Amazon and Walmart are putting out, they've already put out all the mom and pop business. That happened. That's done. Now they're going after like the bigger corporate competitors, the people that have like, what was the place? Shit. Like, it's like a home and furniture place. I forget the name of it. If anybody who's into home and furniture, I don't own a home, so I'm not buying home and furniture, but whatever this home and furniture place was, I forget the name of it. It's been around since I was a kid, and they just went out of business. And they point blank said, like, Walmart beginning to sell furniture or lawn furniture or something at Walmart put them out of business. It's like, what are we trying to get to? A point where the only stores left on this planet for you to shop at are Amazon, Walmart, and Target? Because that's where we're heading. If we don't change our behavior and start waking up and doing what we're supposed to do, that's where we're heading. And that's a crazy, scary world because once they have all that power, what do you think they're going to do with it? Do you think they're going to start treating workers better or worse? Do you think they're going to start screwing over consumers more or less? Do you think they're going to outsource your jobs more frequently or less frequently? I mean, come on. You know what it is. So, start boycotting these places that treat workers like shit, pay poverty wages, and are monopolizing industries, because if you don't, we are going to be even more fucked than we are right now. And speaking of, I forgot to mention that the other horrible thing, the other main reason, especially for any conservatives that see this, but everybody should be on board with this, when Amazon and Walmart pay you less than it costs for you to live, where does that money get made up? Federal aid, welfare. So if you're wanting lower taxes or less government spending or any of that stuff, you need to start boycotting these companies, because not boycotting them is only increasing the demand for federal aid programs, which then increases the need to raise taxes or maintain high tax rates, which nobody likes. I know there's this myth that like socialists and Democrats love paying high taxes. They don't. They just view it as the lesser evil to having tons and tons of people starving, and kids in poverty and homeless people everywhere. So if you want to see less federal aid going to cover the Waltons and Jeff Bezos, you gotta start boycotting these companies and start spending your dollars wisely. Spend your dollars at places that actually give a shit about workers, give a shit about consumers. And the other key part is the democratic process. Right now, the way it stands is every 4 years in presidential elections, about 55% of the country votes in the general election, which is, I don't know if it's the lowest, but it's definitely among the lowest rates in the entire, what do they call it, Western democratic world, or Western world. Every democracy across Europe and Asia has much higher participation in their democracies. Australia even makes it a national holiday. I think you get a fine if you don't vote. So if we're not even voting, I don't know, and that's the general election. In a presidential year, which is the highest. During the 2 years between that, when it's just congressional races and state and local races, no presidential race, it gets below 50%. That's less than 50% of the people are even putting in their input into the general election. And the primary, which is way more important than the general election, because that's where you actually have the choice to pick good candidates or replace bad candidates that are in office. The voter turnout on those is fucking pathetic. It's 5-10%, if that. I mean, I live in a state where Colorado does this amazing thing where every single registered voter gets mailed 2 ballots for primaries. You get a Republican and a Democratic ballot. You get to fill out one or the other and send it back. Well, if you're registered Republican or Democrat, you only get that one. But if you're registered independent, like myself and most people, you get both ballots. You fill out one and send it back. Okay? And then, and it's mailed to everybody. And it's 30 days before the election. So you have 30 days to do some research, fill it out. You can drop it off at any post office and multiple other locations around your city. It's amazing. It's so easy to vote. And we have way higher voter participation than the national average because of it. And then the general election, same thing. Mail you a ballot 30 days beforehand. You got all the time in the world to fill it out. But the primary and the local elections are where people do not pay attention. And judges. I mean, you're seeing with all these cases with the police brutality and the protests and stuff, who are the people that are letting these cops get away with murder when they do murder somebody? I'm not saying every time a cop does something it's murder, but every time that you see something that clearly is murder and then it goes to trial and they get off, who's making that decision? A lot of times it's a judge. And guess who gets to vote on judges? Us. Guess who always votes to retain the judge? Us. And a lot of that's on the media. I've tried. It is really difficult to find out if a judge is worth a shit or not. It's damn near impossible. I mean, in Colorado they give there's a little brief summary with every judge, and it says something like some association of lawyers or something like that, you know, gives this judge a 98% approval rating and recommends to retain him. You almost, I've never seen one that I've read where the lawyers are saying that we, you know, they recommend that you get rid of this judge. Never once have I seen that. And I mean, with some of these decisions these judges are making, and judges have crazy power because, I mean, they're pretty much like little mini gods in our country. I mean, they can do some scary stuff, and they affect things for decades. And I mean, politicians are aware of this, though. Rich people are aware of it. They use the courts to really fuck us and cement laws and get laws interpreted in ways that screw us. Like, because laws are purposely wrote to be kind of vague, to where they allow future generations to kind of, I don't want to say change the law, but interpret it in a way that can kind of change the law. Basically, it's part of our roots in the English legal system. It comes from England. It's something we've adopted. Some other countries don't do this. Like Germany, for example, I think does not have a legal system like ours. I think their laws are written in a much more black and white way, so they're not open to interpretation of a judge based on what's legal and what's not legal. But you know, it's where our legal system works. So we got to learn to play the game. And as long as judges are interpreting the laws that our politicians create to decide basically what is the law, we got to pay attention to judges, and we got to start getting rid of some judges that make bad decisions. Like that dude who, that judge, the Brock Turner guy, I think it was Stanford, I can't remember, it was some West Coast school, the rich preppy white dude who raped that girl, got caught, and then the judge gave him like fucking a slap on the wrist. He was in jail for like 30 days for rape. Like getting caught in the act of fucking rape. Judge gave him like 30 days. That's a judge that could be tossed out in an election. I don't know if he's been, I mean, that was years ago. I hope he got voted out, but that's what I'm saying. We got to start paying attention to judges. You got to start paying attention to your local elections. Those are extremely important. I've talked about that in a previous video. And you got to start paying attention to the primaries. The primaries are so much more important than the general election, because the primary is where you're going to have, you know, people that are challenging the status quo, especially within the Democratic Party right now. I can't speak so much to the Republican Party, because when I see Republican primaries, it's usually just you're not crazy enough, or like you don't hate abortion enough, or you don't love guns enough. It's never like a principled thing, like I'd never see a Republican challenging another Republican because like you're too corrupt, you're screwing over working class people. Like none of that stuff factors into the equation with the Republican Party. But in the Democratic Party, very much so. Every single election, almost, anytime there's a primary, usually the person in office has been picked by rich people at the DNC or the DCCC, which those are the two organizations that kind of fund and pick. Well, they're supposed to just kind of give campaign funding to politicians that win the primary, but what they do is they pick the candidate they want to win the primary before the voters even get a chance to know the candidates, and then they start pouring in millions and millions of dollars into that person's race so they can have all the ads, all the staff and stuff like that, and then we get a chance to vote on whether or not we vote for maybe this progressive challenger who is grassroots funded, who wants to make government more for the people instead of for the rich, or we could vote for the person who's taking money from the rich, and when they get in office they're going to screw us left, right, and center. And 99.9% of the time, we the voters choose the candidate that's going to fuck us in the ass, and then complain we're getting fucked in the ass. What the fuck? Like, like you can't keep picking these people that are going to screw you after they've already been screwing you for decades. I mean, some of these people have been like Nancy Pelosi has been in office for almost my entire lifetime. It's like 30 something years. I don't know what year she got in. It was like, I don't think it was the early 80s. I think it was mid 80s, but I was like a small child when Nancy Pelosi got into office. I am 38 years old now. Nancy Pelosi has been in office for 3.5 decades. She is horrible. She is corrupt as fuck. Everybody in the country knows it. Republicans, Democrats, Independents all know it, all hate her. Guess what? She wins she runs for election every 2 years. Every 2 years. And she's been primaried many times. And guess what? The voters of San Francisco, which is supposed to be a progressive haven, they choose Nancy Pelosi over the progressive candidate. And guess why that is? It's because hardly anybody votes in primaries. Like, hardly. How many of you vote in a primary? My sister just voted in a primary for the first time this year. I was pretty happy about that. But nobody votes in primaries. So that has to change. That has to be like our number one step. Working class people got to start voting in primaries. Your next primary, heck, if you just vote for the person who's not in office a lot of times, that's probably the best thing you can do. But pay attention to who's funding these candidates. Pay attention to who's endorsing them. If you start seeing people like the DNC, or you start seeing other big name politicians that you know who are not good supporting them, just automatically vote against them. Like, we can't keep voting for people that screw us and then act surprised when we get screwed. And if we're not willing to do those things, then we might as well just kiss the country goodbye, because a representative democracy or a republic cannot function correctly unless we do our part. We have to make wise decisions as voters. And if we're unwilling to do that, our government is just going to be filled with corrupt people that screw us until eventually the whole thing just falls apart on itself, because of we're not doing the things we need to do to keep the system running correctly. It's kind of like a car. If you start pouring diesel gas in your car's not going to work. Us electing corrupt politicians is like pouring diesel gas in our car. And same thing with the economy. Like, if we keep supporting these companies and these people that are rigging the system in their favor so that they can just leave trillions and billions of dollars to their kids in trust funds and stock shares, we can't complain about them if we're doing the things that enable them to hurt us. So we gotta change our behaviors. I hope that makes sense. I hope that it's helpful to you. I hope it's helpful to some other people you know. Like I said before, like, share, subscribe below. I'll see you next time with another video. Peace.